Hi, my name is Dave Cuttino. I'm the founder of Reservoir Distillery, and here we are in the still room and the production that we have in the neighborhood of Scotts Addition, Richmond, Virginia. So we try to do everything as a Virginia appellation, basically source our grain within 45 miles of the distillery. We even go so far as to take down trees in Virginia, cut them up into staves, age them, and then turn them into barrels. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what our process is. It hasn't changed for about 5,000 years, so you should be a little familiar with some of the pieces that I'm going to show you. So everything in this facility comes through this door over here that's closed right now. It rolls in, and right now we got a couple of bags of grain over here that you can see, and the grain comes in. We hook it up to this nice machine, and this is a grain mill that basically has two plates that grinds it. It creates a little bit more heat, so it's a slightly different texture on the grain than what you would see from a hammer or a roller mill. But from this piece of equipment, we can do about 800 pounds of grain an hour, and we can actually feel the grain and run it through a sifter, and we can get really, really fine grinds and dial them into what it is that we want. Now, everything that I'm going to show you here is either modified by us or built by us. Now, one of the neat things about Richmond, Virginia is we have a very strong racing community here with NASCAR. So we have some really nice welders, but we also make cruise missile parts. So we have some very, very nice welders. So what you'll see here, this is our cooker. It is a 400-gallon cooker. And typically when you go and see distilleries around the world, equipment is usually in 400 or 500-gallon multiples. The reason for that is that that's the amount that you need to actually fill up a 53-gallon barrel if you do it correctly. A little bit of trivia there for you. So this is basically just a double boiler. We grind our grain. This auger drops the grain right down into it, and we spin it up and we cook it. And this is where we also add enzymes. Now here at Reservoir, we do single grain whiskeys, 100% corn, 100% wheat, and 100% rye, all Virginia grain. Okay, it comes from 45 miles from here. It comes in. Now, we don't have malted barley in the mash bill, so you might say, well, how is it that you do that? Well, we do add enzymes, and everybody adds enzymes, but that's how we cut the long chain sugars into short, so that we can then pitch them with yeast, because yeast like to eat short chain sugars. Right now, this guy's not on. That's why I can put my hand on it. But I will warn you, Jason, there are hot scalding things here. There's also high voltage. Careful what you touch. Now, if you want to come up here, we just turned the agitator off. This is our chiller, and this is where we just pitched. And there is a bourbon mash in here. If you want to climb up and take a quick peek at that and see the color of the grain. And what we do with this piece of equipment is this is a bubble jacket on here, and we run cold water through it, and it crashes the mash down to where we can add yeast and pitch it. Then from that, we go right over here into our open top fermenters. And you can actually tell typically by temperature, smell, taste, where things are at. So if you come and look at this mash, I don't know if you can actually hear this, but it's like snap, crackle, pop. You can see it moving around, right? You can taste that? It's a little bit sour, right? Mm-hmm. This is moving on. It's about halfway through. Now come look at this guy over here. So you can feel it, and it's actually warm, and that's the yeast working and putting off biological heat. Now you can see the how it's all puffed up. See it roll down and get down to the bottom. Much sweeter. There's still a lot of sugar in there for it to work on. Now, these will run typically, depending on ambient temperature, anywhere from about 4 or 5 days to sometimes as long as 11 days in the winter when it gets really, really cold. We don't have like a set time. You can see it. It's not jacketed. It's an open top. And most distilleries nowadays, what you see is a jacketed fermenter, and that's so that they can put it at the optimum temperature, and after about 3 days, they get as much alcohol as they're going to get, and then off they go. One of the things that we do that really adds a lot of flavor and value to the whiskey, makes it a little bit more complex, is we let the yeast work until they're done. And we typically see drops from about 20 down to about 6 bricks. So that's about 14% ABV. And that's if we're doing it right. You might see a little bit lower sometimes. It all depends just on the batch. The longer these things go, yeast, what they'll do is they'll kind of like people, they'll pollute their environment until it kills itself off. And when that happens, they start to get strained and they start to create other more volatile alcohols that really end up as flavor in your whiskey. Right. So this entire thing.
Now, does the yield differ between the wheat and the rye and the corn? I would assume. You get 14 every place?
So corn always wins, yes. Right? It's got the most sugar. That's why it's really the sweetest. Wheat's not actually that far behind. Mm-hmm. Rye costs twice as much, makes 40% less out of it, and it destroys all your equipment. It's really hard. It messes up your grinding plates. It gums up all your equipment, but it tastes really good. So that's why we do it.
Good job.
Okay, so all of this entire mash, when it's done, and you can see like this one is getting a little bit closer. You can actually see the corn oil up on top, and it's actually getting colder. A lot less activity. This one's about ready to go. You can tell by smell, by taste, by how it looks. One of the old tells is if you got fruit flies down in here, it's not producing any more CO2, right. So the fruit flies can get down to it. But typically we go by the Brix measurement. All of this goes into this guy. And this lunar lander guy is just a giant, what we refer to as a strip still. Mm-hmm. At this stage, we don't really necessarily have to have copper. So all we're doing here is taking that 400 gallons and we're reducing it down to 300 liters. That's what you see right here. Mm-hmm. Okay? Standard pot still that we built. It can go up to 800 gallons if we want to, but we're running it at 400. When we go to 800, we're usually overfilling it with beer or wine or something like that. Now all of this, if you want to see what some of this looks like, and this is actually, so this is the second one. So this is the first range. Mm-hmm. You can see it and see how it's just kind of dark. Yep. And see how you got the oils floating on top. Those are the fusel oils. Yep. Okay. And again, we're not trying to do any specific cuts. We're just condensing it down and capturing everything at this stage. If you smell this, it's kind of got that sake, dirty sake kind of smell. And if you taste it, it's like, you don't want to do that.
What do you do with your draft? What's left over?
So there's two things that we can typically do because we're distilling on the grain, right? And so everything comes out. One thing that we have here, and we can thank the beer guys for this in the city of Richmond, we can actually put our draft down into the sewer, and we get a benefit from the city for that because it adds certain biotics that help with the sewer, because Richmond's a very old city, not as old as what you might find in Europe, but for the U.S. it's pretty old. It's about 400 years old, and the sewer system here is very old, so they combine the rainwater as well as the sewer together, and so everything gets run, and then the stuff that we put in helps with breaking down the sewage. So we have that benefit. If we can, we give it to a farmer, and we don't sell it. If they want to come and get it, they can have it. But where gas prices are right now, sometimes it's a little more difficult to do that because we are an urban distillery, and the farmers tend to be too far out to come and get it. This fits very nicely into this still. Now this still is actually an old Armagnac still. It's originally made for an Armagnac company, but it's part of the 5% Armagnac stills that are really more like a cognac still. And that's where you look at this head and you go, oh yeah, that looks familiar. Made by a company called Coda in Austria. And we originally got this because it was an electric still. It was one of the few ones that I could find, and it was used so I could afford it. But it's a really, really beautiful still that we got in 2008, and it's been running nonstop since then. In fact, Jason got to taste some brandy I made off of it, and it wasn't too bad, was it, Jason?
Very nice stuff.
Right. So first distillation, second distillation, we modified it here so we could actually overfill it, get it up to about here. Manufacturers tell you can't do that, but I do it all the time. And then we do all of our cuts from right here, and it comes out into, let's see if we got they've already taken the barrels. And let me bring you over here. Right here we got, actually, this is barrels that were just priming. It's a quarter cast barrel, and whenever we have these, you fill them up with water, and you let them soak overnight. so that the water can go into the staves,
Yep.
let them swell up and reseal, and then we dump it out when we're getting ready to fill it, right? So that's why that's sitting there like that. It's getting ready to roll. Let's go and see if we got any. Nope, we don't. Here's a barrel that's been freshly filled right here. And so basically we just come over here, we load it in, and we proof it down, and there you go.
Excellent. 125 proof?
So everything we do is at 125 proof when we go into barrels.
62.5% for us.
Yeah. So we make wheat whiskey, rye whiskey, and bourbon. The rules are the same for all three. Wheat whiskey's got to be at least 51% wheat, rye's got to be at least 1% rye. They all have to be distilled at under 160 proof, and then go into a charred New American oak barrel at 125 or lower.
Right.
So we go in at 125.
Okay. And now we'll go to the warehouse and see what we have there.
Let's go.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the warehouse.
Or we might call it the rick house as well too.
Well, technically it's not a rick house because everything is on the floor.
Yeah, actually palletized or laid on its side like a dunnage.
Bilge. On the bilge.
On the bilge. So there's a couple different ways that we age, and what you can see here is we've got several different size barrels. Reservoir originally started and specialized in quarter casks, but quarter casks are not limited to just one size. So in this space, what you can see, we've got some 10-gallon barrels here. We've got some, let's go right here. We've got some 15-gallon barrels as well here. We've got some 5 gallons hidden away. They're too small so you can't see them. And then over here, we've got some 53-gallon barrels as well. So while we started specializing in quarter casks, we actually laid down whiskey on a variety of different sizes, all the way up to 400-liter casks when we do finishing in cognac barrels. So this space is actually very special and really good for aging. The things that make this, is it latitude or longitude we're talking about when we go this way?
Latitude.
It's a latitude, so we have the right latitude here, where the seasons change enough that it gets really hot in the summer and it gets really cold in the winters. And this building that you can see the ceiling and you can see the walls. This was actually originally a pagoda-style tobacco drying warehouse, which is really good for actually aging barrels. It's very similar to the classic rick houses that you see in Kentucky, that is just a wood frame with metal cladding on it. The wind kind of comes this way, and we have some doors down below that we can open up and we can let air circulate as well.
Good venting.
We have very good venting.
A lot of circulation.
So those are kind of the basic sizes that we work with, but we also have some really cool experiments that we have going on here. You want to talk about the space side that we've got?
Yes, we have accumulated a few Virginia trees and requested that our Culpeper stave mill break those down into staves for us. We aged them for about 6 years outside and then sent them on to our Virginia Cooper, which is Speyside Bourbon Cooperage down in Atkins, Virginia. And they crafted about just under 40 53-gallon barrels for us, where we are doing some experiments with those barrels to see just what does Virginia taste like.
Yeah, we might actually mess with a little bit with the toast, varying the char, varying the ages of the staves. We do a lot of experimentation here. In fact, we have a couple of bays that we just took Jason through, and that's why the camera is not as steady as you would normally see it. Isn't that right, Jason? Jason, you got any questions for us?
Nope.
Not at all? Well, that's because we just fed him a lot of whiskey.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.